A stranger's voice calmly counted down from 10 somewhere in the darkness. 10. The number drifted across the campground so softly that for a moment I thought it had come from the trees themselves. The three of us sat around our small fire near the edge of the public campground loop. Beyond the gravel pad and our picnic table, the forest pressed close. Tall pines and black spruce swallowing most of the moonlight. The fire popped and shifted. Across the campground, someone's lantern glowed faintly between two tents. A cooler lid slammed somewhere far off, and then the forest settled again into the quiet breathing rhythm of night insects and distant wind. "Did you hear that?" I asked. Lucas looked up from poking the fire with a stick. "Hear what?" Erin tilted her head. 9. The voice was clearer this time. Calm. Unhurried. Not loud. Just somehow present, like it had been placed carefully into the air. Lucas frowned toward the trees. "Okay, that." Erin let out a small laugh that didn't quite sound convinced. Probably someone messing around at another site. The campground wasn't empty. Earlier, when we checked in, there had been a handful of other campers scattered through the loop. 2 RVs near the entrance. A couple with a dog farther down the gravel road. Still, the voice didn't sound far away. It sounded deliberate. 8. The number slid between the trees behind us. Lucas stood slowly, the firelight outlining his shoulders. "Hello?" he called. His voice carried down the gravel road and dissolved into the woods. No reply, just the crackle of our fire and the faint metallic clink of someone's cookware from another campsite. Erin leaned forward, elbows on her knees. "Maybe kids." "Kids don't count like that," Lucas muttered. 7. This time the voice sounded closer to the ground. Lower somehow, like it had moved nearer to the campground itself. I felt the hair rise on the back of my neck. "Okay," Erin said, forcing a casual tone. "That's a little weird." I turned in my chair, scanning the edge of the woods. The flashlight hanging from a tree branch swayed gently, throwing thin ribbons of light across the underbrush. Nothing moved, but the darkness felt attentive. 6. A tent zipper opened somewhere across the campground. A man's voice called quietly, "You guys hear that?" Another lantern flickered to life near the far RV. Lucas stepped away from the fire and walked toward the gravel path, peering into the trees. "Probably someone hiking the trail," he said, though his voice lacked conviction. The trailhead sat about 50 yards behind our site. During the day, it led into a network of hiking paths through the forest. At night, it looked like a narrow black throat between the trees. 5. The number came from that direction. Erin stopped smiling. "You think someone's hurt?" she asked quietly. I listened. No stumbling footsteps. No rustling. Just that voice. Perfectly calm. Counting. 4. Lucas cupped his hands around his mouth. "Hey, you need help." The campground seemed to hold its breath. Then something changed. From the site across the road, the couple with the lantern stepped out of their tent. I could see their silhouettes now, both standing still, watching the trees. They'd heard it too. 3. The voice was closer again. Not inside the trees now. Somewhere along the gravel path. I stood up without meaning to. The fire popped behind me, sending sparks spiraling upward. "Okay," Erin whispered. "Okay. This isn't funny anymore." Lucas took 2 steps toward the path and stopped. The beam of his headlamp cut across the ground, illuminating tire ruts and scattered pine needles. No footprints. No person. Nothing moving. 2. The number sounded almost beside us. Erin grabbed my sleeve. "Where is he?" I couldn't answer, because now that I was standing, I noticed something that hadn't been there a minute earlier. The other campers had gone quiet. Not the normal kind of quiet. The kind where people are listening. The lantern across the road had been set on the ground. The couple stood near it, staring toward the trailhead the same way we were. No one spoke. No one moved. 1. The voice was right behind us. Lucas spun around so fast his headlamp beam streaked across the trees. Nothing. The forest stood perfectly still. Even the wind had stopped. The fire crackled softly, its light stretching our shadows long across the gravel. Okay, Lucas said slowly. That's 0. The number wasn't spoken from the woods. It came from the campground entrance road. We all turned at the same time. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, somewhere near the front of the campground, a metal gate slammed shut. The sound echoed through the trees. A few seconds later, a loudspeaker crackled to life. It was mounted on the ranger station building near the entrance, a place we'd passed earlier without paying much attention. Static hummed for a moment. Then a calm, recorded voice spoke. "Attention, campers." The voice was the same one that had been counting. Every hair on my arms stood up. "This is a routine wildlife containment protocol." Lucas whispered. "What?" Across the road, the couple stood frozen in the lantern light. The loudspeaker continued, perfectly steady. "Remain at your campsite and do not approach the forest edge." The fire suddenly seemed very small. "Do not attempt to leave the campground." A faint rustling sound drifted from the trailhead behind us. Slow, heavy, something moving through underbrush. The loudspeaker crackled again. "Countdown complete." The rustling grew louder, branches bending, something large shifting between the trees. Aaron's voice trembled. "What does that mean?" For a moment, the loudspeaker was silent. Then the voice returned, softer now, almost apologetic. "It means," it said calmly, "the barrier is no longer active." Behind us, deep in the forest darkness, something exhaled. Their tent glowed with a pulsing heartbeat-like light. At first I thought it was just the lantern. Lucas had hung it from the center loop of our tent before we left to gather firewood, and cheap camping lanterns sometimes flickered when their batteries got low. When we walked back along the gravel pad, the tent fabric glowed faintly through the nylon walls. But it wasn't flickering. It was pulsing. Slow, deliberate. The thin orange fabric of the tent brightened, dimmed, then brightened again. Each swell of light moving outward through the material like the push of a heartbeat beneath skin. Lucas stopped beside me. "You see that, right?" The campground loop stretched around us in a wide oval of gravel pads and picnic tables. A few lanterns burned at distant sites, scattered like small planets in the dark. Somewhere down the loop someone laughed quietly, and a dog's collar jingled. But the forest felt closer tonight. The black wall of trees behind our campsite leaned inward, the wind brushing through pine needles with a dry, whispering sound. Inside the tent, the glow pulsed again. Bright, dim, bright. Erin shifted the bundle of firewood in her arms. "It's the lantern." "No," Lucas said slowly. He stepped forward. The tent fabric rustled gently in the breeze. "It seems tight." The nylon stretched smooth over the poles. I could see the outline of our sleeping bags through the material. But no lantern. We'd left it on the picnic table. The glow came again, a deep amber color that filled the tent from within, then slowly faded until the fabric looked almost normal again. Then it swelled once more, like something breathing. Erin laughed softly, though it sounded forced. "Okay, someone's messing with us." "Who?" I asked. She glanced around the loop. Across the gravel road, another campsite sat partially hidden between two tall fir trees. A couple was sitting at their table under a small propane lantern, their silhouettes barely moving as they talked. Farther down the loop, an RV hummed quietly, its windows glowing blue with television light. No one was near our tent. Lucas crouched beside the entrance flap. "You leave anything in there?" he asked. "Just sleeping bags." "And the cooler," Erin said. The glow pulsed again, stronger this time. The entire tent brightened so suddenly that the zipper teeth gleamed silver in the firelight. Lucas froze. "Did you see that?" I nodded. It hadn't just gotten brighter. The light had shifted color. Instead of amber, it had turned faintly red. The forest wind moved through the trees again, stirring the branches above us. Shadows slipped across the ground. The tent dimmed, then swelled again. Red, dim, red. Erin set the firewood down slowly. "Okay, that's not a lantern." Lucas reached for the zipper. Maybe someone's drone, he muttered. What kind of drone beats like a heart? I said. He hesitated, then pulled the zipper halfway open. The tent collapsed inward slightly as the tension released. Cool night air spilled into the dark interior. Lucas leaned closer, peering inside. The glow pulsed again, and his entire face turned red. He jerked backward so quickly he fell onto the gravel. What? Aaron said. Lucas stared at the tent. There's nothing in there. The pulse came again, bright enough that the tent walls glowed like thin skin. I stepped closer and looked through the open flap. Our sleeping bags lay exactly where we'd left them. The cooler sat near the foot of the tent. No lantern, no device, no light source, but the glow still came, rising slowly from nowhere, spreading outward through the tent fabric, like blood moving beneath skin. Erin stepped up beside me. Is it under the ground? She whispered. The idea made my stomach tighten. Beneath the gravel pad, the campground had laid electrical conduits and water lines years ago. We'd seen metal access covers scattered along the loop. But this glow didn't come from below. It filled the entire tent. The pulse slowed, then quickened, as if reacting to our breathing. Lucas stood up slowly, brushing gravel off his jeans. That's not normal, he said. Across the road, the couple had stopped talking. They were watching us now. Or maybe they were watching the tent. Because when the glow pulsed again, it was brighter than before. Red light spilled through the nylon walls and onto the ground around it, stretching our shadows long across the gravel. The woman across the road stood up. Her lantern flickered once, then twice. The wind shifted through the trees again, and the glow inside the tent changed. It wasn't centered anymore. The brightest point had moved. Now it pressed against one side of the tent wall, right where my shadow fell across it. I stepped back. The light followed. Not quickly, just enough that the next pulse bloomed exactly where I had been standing. Aaron noticed it too. Did that just? The pulse came again, closer to Lucas now. He stepped away instinctively. The glow slid across the tent fabric after him. All three of us stared at it. Lucas whispered, "It's tracking us." Across the campground, more lanterns flickered on. Tent zippers rasped open. Silhouettes appeared in doorways and beneath tarp shelters. The red glow pulsed again, brighter than ever, and suddenly the entire campground seemed aware of it. A murmur spread through the loop. Someone said, "What is that?" Another voice, "Is that coming from your sight?" The tent pulsed harder now, faster, like a racing heartbeat. From somewhere near the campground entrance, a mechanical hum began. Lucas turned. That's the ranger station. At the far end of the loop, near the check-in kiosk, a tall metal pole stood beside the gravel road. Mounted to it was a campground loudspeaker. We hadn't noticed it earlier. Now it crackled softly to life. Static whispered through the trees. The glow inside the tent surged. Brighter, brighter, until the entire campsite glowed red. The loudspeaker clicked. A calm recorded voice filled the night. "Attention campers." Everyone in the loop fell silent. The voice continued. "Please remain at your designated sites." Lucas looked at me. "This can't be about that." The pulse came again. Violent now. The tent fabric stretched outward with the light, as if something inside were pressing against it. The loudspeaker crackled again. "Ground sensors have detected elevated activity along the forest boundary." Aaron whispered, "Ground sensors." The pulse slowed suddenly, then deepened. The red light thickened until the tent looked almost solid, like a heart glowing beneath skin. The voice from the loudspeaker spoke again. Calm, measured. Campers may notice warning indicators within designated monitoring zones. Lucas stared at the tent. Warning indicator? The glow pulsed once more, and every lantern in the campground flickered at the same time. The loudspeaker finished its message. If your campsite is displaying a red signal, the tent flared violently, bright enough to paint the trees crimson. Do not approach the forest. The glow moved again, This time it wasn't following us. It was turning, slowly, toward the tree line, and just beyond the last row of tents, deep in the darkness between the pines, something pulsed back,